schools is because whether you're musical or not, listening to music and doing things with your body, dancing and stuff like that, and while your early instruction in music in school actually causes cross-firing of the neurons in your brain from the right hemisphere to the left hemisphere. It helps develop the brain. Just like being exposed to reading, to have people read to you is when parents would ask me, how can I get my child to read or read to them? It's early exposure to things helps develop the brain, but then there are certain doors, certain channels in the brain that after you get to a certain age, they just kind of, they don't really shut, but they close off. Like if you don't use certain parts of your brain by a certain age, they literally die.
Really?
And it becomes, some of them, since we don't use our brains 100% ever, you usually don't miss the parts that die, usually.
What type of parts shut down?
Well, things like the ability to pick up languages, the ability to learn a musical instrument, things like that, where when parents ask me, or anybody asks me about, when their child should start piano lessons, this was our daughter-in-law asked us about for one of our grandkids. I said, really, it should tag team with reading, because reading is a decoding skill. Music is similar to that. And also, make sure the child learns to read first, and then they've got the decoding skill going in their brain. And also, when they're about 7 or 8, because kids usually learn to read around 5 or 6. Then when they're 7 or 8, a little bit older, then the manual dexterity that you need to play the piano is more set, because you've been using a pencil, you've been playing puzzles, all kinds of things that help your eye-hand coordination. And then there's a certain level of, like a building block thing. So they learn to read, they cement that skill, then they move on to playing a musical instrument. And those areas of the brain where you're using your decoding skills and where you're using your manual skills are all wide open at the same time. And it's when I think they kind of start to narrow down a little bit when the child is, amazingly young, like 8, 9, 10. Things begin to just close down a little bit, where the skills that you are using will stay there, but skills that you are not using will just be what you could have done. It's just one of those weird things where you probably never know.
There's a lot of that.
I don't think I can write script anymore. You know what I mean?
Cursive writing.
Cursive, that's what I mean. Yeah, it's cursive, yeah.
Because you haven't used it. You learned it, and probably could do it just fine. When you were.
I make notes still with a pen every once in a while, but not nearly as often as I used to. And I feel like rusty gears are turning. Like, oh God, how do I make a small G cursive? Oh yeah, that's right.
Before I forget, the interesting story about a lady that I knew a long time ago who learned to play the piano as an adult, and she could play just fine, but she couldn't make her right hand and her left hand work at the same time.
Oh, really?
Her right hand always, when she would play the piano, was a real interesting thing to watch, and I've never seen that happen with anybody else quite that way. But her right hand always, when she was playing things with chords like hymns, because she was from church, her right hand would go down first. Her left hand would be slightly behind it. She couldn't quite get her hands to work. It was like her right hand had to lead the left hand. So there's all kinds of things like that go on if you don't learn things at the right time.
Is it Morse code?
Oh yeah, it sounds like someone's calling for help.
Yeah.
Probably in the flooded river. Was that giant bridge over the Illinois River drivable?
No.
Wow.
No, that was closed for a couple days.
Well, in Elwood, I guess there was really, well, we, in our house, we had nothing. Our yard flooded a little bit. It does that sometimes. But my mom got a lot of water in her basement. Her pilot light, put the pilot light in her heater out, so we had to go light that. But I guess a lot of people did have damage. And, they said they sent a flyer around that they would pick up anything the garbage can would pick up anything that had been damaged in the flood today if you put it out. Thank you.
Anything else?
Just that large cranberry juice
Yes.
whenever you
Bring
get
back a bit more coffee as well?
Yes.
it. Yeah.
Sure.
Because I don't know if you were following the news. And it's difficult to get news in the small towns about what actually happened.
Yeah.
But what happened, I don't know if you heard this. We're talking about 2 months ago, the flood of
Yeah.
9 barges broke loose.
Oh, I didn't know. I didn't hear that.
9?
9.
That's a lot of barge.
And they all slammed into the lock. 4 of them sunk. Yeah. And
Slammed into what locks?
the lock right here in Marseilles.
Oh, right here.
Yeah. And I haven't read any accounts of this, but what my limited understanding of physics.
Thank you.
You now have this lock in a river that basically has 4 huge boulders in it now that's sunk.
Yeah.
And the pictures I saw, the other 3 were angled, like at a 40-degree angle for the lock, pointing towards the town of Marseilles. So I'm assuming all this water
funneling the water right
Yeah,
into
it's right
Marseilles.
in. Yeah.
Right
That,
in.
actually, yeah, that's exactly right. It's,
After that happened, they actually evacuated the Star Rock employees for the locks down there because they anticipated more destruction.
if you ever want to read a really, really, really good book about the devastation of a certain area, read Isaac Storm by Eric Larson. It's about the hurricane that hit Galveston, Texas in 1900. And it is just
Yeah,
Did he do Devil in the White City?
Devil in the White City, also Thunderstruck, and in the Garden of Beasts, which is about when the Nazis, when Hitler first came to power in Germany. That was really good. We listened to and or read all of them. But you're talking about the destruction that the water can, and how fast it can rise.
I don't know if I ever told this story on the podcast. Stop me if I have. I remember when I was 16 years old. It was the summer. So, as a teenager, in between school, I was 15 or 16. It had probably rained, the night before or something or other, but I was probably up till 1 or 2 o'clock watching the Midnight Special or in concert or Sven Gulli or something. I was up too late, and then, when that wasn't enough for me, I probably put the headphones on and was listening to Beatle bootlegs till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And my dad, I can't remember what time it was, rushed into the room. This never happened. Hey, you got to get up. He used to call me George. Hey, you got to get up. What? Why? The basement's going to flood. I'm like, what? Because the basement's going to flood. The water didn't make the turn down by Hickory Crick. I'm like, get up. And I'm all groggy. And even as young as that age, I needed coffee in the morning. So I reluctantly got up, went downstairs to the basement. Everything was fine. But what are you talking about? It's going to get here. We got to move, all the refrigerators, washing machine, we put them up on tables. And probably within 15 minutes of doing that, water started to seep into the basement.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And
Well, your dad knew how the house worked.
right, and probably within 90 minutes, we had 4 feet of water
Wow.
in the basement.
Yeah, people don't give water credit for what, and I've heard this in newscasts, whatever. People who come back in their houses after the flood, even if the house hasn't been like completely submerged, they're always astonished at the damage a little bit of water does.
Yeah,
It's a powerful thing.
Some of the pictures, the water was almost up past the windows of the houses down here. It was,
Yeah.
Am I having a false memory, or did you show me years ago in your house, before you got it all fixed up and sealed, didn't you have like a little regular creek that came out of the fireplace or something? Or
yeah. That was downstairs. That still gets damp.
oh,
We have since had the I forget what it's called. Was it just the flashing around the chimney redone with copper? That reduced it quite a bit. We used to have some other just cracks in the foundation, which were sealed with some sort of, I forget what it was called, some sort of water fighting.
they can do a lot more now, but boy, if you don't,
It's still
because
hard to
that's
stop
it,
water.
it finds a way in.
Yep.
The water can find a way in.
Now I remember I was telling you about the house that I was born in, which is right directly across the street from where we live now. It's a little bungalow type house, and I lived there till it was 3 or 4. I remember 3, I think. But I have a few memories of that house. One was that vague memory of my dad slipped down the paraffin wax, going down the. I have a vague memory of that, and a vague memory of the fact that the basement used to flood incredibly there. And I think I have a memory of looking down the stairs in that basement and seeing the water, up to the,
And you open up the basement, it's just water.
Water. And it's still, nobody lives there full time. It's a weird situation over there now, but there's still that, there's still a black hose that stretches out into the yard and drains the water whenever the sump pump drains the basement every time there's rain. You still get water.
Miraculously, here at Marseilles, we didn't lose power at all through the whole thing, which is astounding. That almost a quarter of the town was underwater.
Yeah. Well,
Did anyone lose power in town?
Well, I'm assuming they must have down in the flood areas. I mean, they probably had to intentionally shut the power off there.
Well, now there's supposed to be rain again tomorrow, 2 months ago. But not nearly as much, so it might, who knows. The ground is probably pretty saturated, so it's not going to.
Well, to the people that did get damaged, they'd probably hear a newscast about more water coming in. They must
just be going, oh my
chill
God.
them. Makes their blood run cold. Our house on Westshire in Joliet, I grew up in, we never had any flooding problem at all, except in the year of 1980, was summer 81, there was a huge flood in Joliet. And that is, we had spent years in false confidence thinking we would never get any.
I believe that was the second one that happened at my parents' house. That happened twice before.
That was a real bad.
They rerouted the water somehow. I think it was all the way back in Frankfurt. I think is where they did something different too.
This had been, they did something to hit the creek.
Right, yeah. I can't remember exactly what it was.
That was the one year we lost a bunch of stuff because